Hi YouTube, it's Jed with Easy Outs. I have my truck out front with a straight blade. I'm getting ready to install some Buyers Pro wings. I didn't see any videos on YouTube for this. I thought it might help some of you out. I will go through a few quick steps with it to show you the basics. Everything's going to be slightly different on every plow because of curvatures and just different variations in measurements. I'll check back with you in just a second to show you the first steps to work on. Okay, the first step in the directions for the driver's side, but I'm working on the passenger side because I already did the driver's side. So what you need to do first of all is the directions tell you to measure up about 5.5 inches up from your cutting blade. So our cutting edge, the top of your cutting edge is here, measure up about 5.5 inches, and that wants to be basically flush with the top side of this bracket here. Okay, and then the next one for the top one, this measurement to here should be about 14.1 inches from the top of the cutting edge. On my plow it works out to just about 7.5 inches between the top of this one to the bottom of this one. Now the distance from here to the side of your mold board should be about 4.5 inches on the bottom bracket and about 4 7/8 on the top bracket. Alright, I've got them bolted into place, or I'm sorry, C-clamped into place. So what I'm going to do next is lightly hang the wing on there and make minor adjustments if necessary. Okay, so I have the wing hung on here just lightly right now. The clamps are still on. You'll see these brackets here and here. They have holes that little pins go through later, but whenever you first put the wing on after clamping them, the brackets into place, you'll probably have to shift it just a little bit. For instance, when I did mine, I had to bump the bottom one up about I don't know, 3/16 of an inch to get it to sit somewhat flush. It's never going to be exactly perfect because of the curves, but you will have to fiddle with it a little bit to get it to work. Now, after you get that done, you'll see the peg in there. That's the one that's going to go through the mold board after you drill a hole. Now, measuring where to put this is basically figured off of, once you put these on the hinges, you reach in there and you mark the, what they call the outside edge of the, sorry about that, of the pin. So to do that, what I did was I reached in there with a Sharpie and I basically traced the outside edge, and then you're supposed to find the middle of it, and realistically the only thing you can do is eyeball it. If somebody knows a better way to do it, that's great, but that's how I did it. So the next thing we need to do is be careful and take our wings off without really moving where our brackets are clamped, and then we're going to do some additional measurements and drill the hole for the mold board. Okay, you see I've taken off the wing, and the marks I was talking about making towards the outside of the mold board is this one here that's somewhat linear, the darker one. And basically I just traced the outside of the pin that's going to go through the mold board, and I roughly marked halfway for that. Now the directions tell you to go over 9/16 of an inch because 9/16 is half of the 1 1/8 inch hole that you're going to be drilling. So I measured from here, 9/16 in, made a mark, essentially lined it up with my center line, and that's where I'm going to put the drill bit to start my hole. Now you can torch this hole. I don't know how to do that or own the torch to do it, so I'm going to use a bimetal hole saw on an impact driver, and I'm very impressed by the speed of this for what it's going to do. I'm going to go ahead and cut this hole in, and I'll be back with you shortly. So I've drilled my hole. I've hung the wing back up onto my brackets, which are still just C-clamped on, and of course, again, nothing is exact here, and the instructions tell you may have to make some minor adjustments. So you'll see that here is my pin coming through the mold board, but only about half of the hole for the pin that goes through to hold it in place is visible, and we need a lot more than that to hold it in place. Now, I could bang on the front of it and try to get it to come over, but it's not going to get it in easily. So we'll just make some adjustments over here to our brackets, and once we have it to where it'll go through somewhat flush, I will show you what we do next. I made some minor adjustments. I got the pin through the mold board with enough room for our extremely large washer and our pin to go through. It's a little bit sloppy, okay, but that's not a big deal. The buyer's kit includes some additional washers to take up that space, and we'll worry about that once we have everything in its final locations and bolted in. After carefully removing the wing, being sure not to displace the brackets that are C-clamped on still, I will now drill some holes through the mold board to mount the brackets. I'm going to once again use my impact driver. They call for a 3/8 inch bit. In my experience from the previous side that I did, 3/8 of an inch is not actually big enough for the bolt to go through. Instead of fiddling with another bit, I just egged out the holes very, very little to allow the bolts to pass through. But I'm going to go ahead and drill my 4 holes. This might be a good time to tell you that you should be very careful where you clamp, so you do not have to adjust your clamps to allow access to the areas where you're going to drill your holes into the mold board. Also, it goes without question, but you want to make sure that the back ribs on your mold board are not going to be anywhere that is going to interfere. It might be more of a problem with something like a plow with an X frame. Maybe some other plows might have variations where it might be an issue, but I think the X frames would probably be one of the most common times for it to be a problem. Alright, I'm going to drill my holes and check back in with you. Okay, so I drilled all 4 holes for my bolts. I put all my bolts through, put the lock washers and nuts on. I did not tighten them down very tight yet. What I did was I put the pin through the mold board along with the washer and the snap pin to hold it in place. Then I had to do a little bit of minor wiggling to get the wing into place. And now that I have everything into place and getting as much surface area contact with the actual mold board as I can, because you cannot get 100%, but as much as I could, I will take this time and start tightening down my bolts. Thank you. Okay, so after we tighten down all of our bolts and nuts, which I've done, the next thing we need to do is install our rubber cutting edge. As you'll see, this one over here is already installed, and the easiest way I found to do that was to go ahead and take my rubber cutting edge, and you'll see mine is actually sitting here on the sidewalk right now, but that's because that was the flattest surface I had. So what I did was I set it to even with the outside of the farthest point of my wing and flat, and now I will clamp it over here to the farthest outside portion, and I'm going to drill a pilot hole through each of the holes. 3/8 of an inch is what I was using. It doesn't really matter probably. And then I'm going to take it off and drill it out to 3/4 of an inch as the instructions imply. And after that, I will go ahead and bolt it on, and it'll look just like that. Check back with you when I'm all finished. Well, I ran out of daylight, but they are finished, and I know that's not the best video quality due to the lighting. However, that's some simple, easy steps and a little advice on how to install the Pro Wings on your straight blade. Thanks a lot, and please like, thumbs up, subscribe, whatever it might be, and we'll see you on our next video.